So, once more again, we are live here. I don't know what happened. There is a problem in internet is so it's disconnected. Once more again, I'll try to connect with you people. Thank you so much, people. The way you people are supporting me, the way you people are loving me. Keep loving, keep supporting me. Uh, Once more again, we'll try to continue with same thing. So let's get it started. It's 28th of June and its time is 11:37. Without any further delay, let's get it started from that points where we ended. So we are try to study the modern India, Vipin Chandra, and now the religious and social reform after the 1858 revolt. I'm trying to studying it. So let's get started. Many in the Muslim middle classes went to the extent of the turning of history of the West Asia for their tradition and the moment of pride. Interestingly, the Hindu and Muslim Sikhs and Parsi later on the lower caste Hindu who had been influenced by the reform movement tended to differ from one to another. On the other hand, the Hindu and Muslim masses who followed the traditional way touched by the reform movement still live harmony, practicing their different religious ritual. To some extent, the process of evolution of the composite culture that had been going for the century was arrested. Though in the other respect, the national unification of Indian peoples they accelerate the will aspect of the phenomena become the apparent when it was found that along with the rapid rise of national consciences and other consciences, communal consciences uh, had had begun to rise among the middle classes. Many of other factors were thus certainly responsible for the birth of communal in modern India. But undoubtedly, the social reform nature of the religious reform movement also contributed. What was the social reform? The major effect of the national awakening of the 19th century was seen in the field of the social reform. The newly educated person increasingly revolt against the rigid social convention and outdated custom. They could no longer tolerate the irrational and dehumanizing social practice. In their revolt, they are inspired by the humanistic idea of the social equality and the equal worth of all the individuals. Nearly all the religious reform contributed to the social reform movement, and this was because of the backwardness feature of the Indian society, such as the caste system, inequality of the sexes, had a religious section in past. In addition to certain other organizations like the Social Conference, Servant of India Societies, Christian Missionary work actively for the social reform. Many prominent persons जैसे ज्योतिबा गोविंद फुले, गोपाल हरि देशमुख, जस्टिस रणादे, के.टी. तलंग, बी.एम. मलबरी, डी.के. कर्वे, शशिपटा बनर्जी, बी.सी. पाल, बीरेश सेलिंगम, Srinarayan Guru, E.V. Ramaswamy, B.R. Ambedkar, and many others who played an important role. In the 20th century, especially after the 1990, the national movement became the main propagator of the social reform. Increasingly, the reformers took the uh, recursive propaganda in the Indian language to reach the masses. They also used to know novel dramas, poetry, short story, plays in the thought in the cinema to spread their view. While the social reform was linked with the religious reform in some cases during the 19th century in later years, and it was encouraging the secular in approach. Moreover, the many people who were the orthodox in their religious approaches participated in it. Similarly, in the beginning, social reform had largely been the effort of newly educated Indian belonging to higher caste to adjust their social behavior to the requirement of modern Western culture. value, but gradually it penetrated down the lower strata of the society and began to revolutionize and construct a social sphere. In time, the idea and the ideal of the reformers won almost universal acceptance, and today it is the Indian Constitution. The social reform movement try in the main to achieve the two objectives: the emancipations of the women and extension of the equal rights of to them, and the removal of the caste rigidity, in particular the abolition of untouchability. Emancipation of the women. For the countless century, women India had been subordinated to the men and socially oppressed. The various religious practices in India, as well as the personal law based on them, consigned the women to be the status inferior to the men. The condition of the upper class women was in the with respect worse than the peasant women. Since later they walk actively in the field of alongside the men, they enjoy the relatively greater freedom of movement in the some aspect, a better status in the family than the upper class women. For example, they seldom observe the parda, and many of them had a right to remarry. The traditional view often praised the role of a woman as a wife and mother, but as an individual they were assigned a very lovely social position. They were supposed to have no personality in their own part, and they tied to their husband. They could not find any other expression to their in one talent, desire except the housewives. In fact, they were seen as the mere just adjunct to the men. For example, why the woman could marry only once among the Hindu. A man was permitted to have more than one wife. Among the Muslim, too, the custom of polygamy prevails. In the large part of the country, the woman had to live behind the parda. The custom of early marriage privilege, and the children of the 8 or the 9 were married. The widow could not be remarried, and the lead and ascetic and the restricted life. In many parts of the country, the horrifying the custom of the certain self-immolations of widow privilege. The Hindu women had no right to inherited property, nor did they enjoy the right to terminate their undesirable marriage. Muslim women could inherit property, but only half as much as the man could. And the matter of the divorce, where theoretically there was no inequality in between the husband and the wife. In fact, the Muslim women did a divorce. Social position of the Hindu and Muslim women as well as their value were the same. Moreover, in both the cases, they were economically and socially totally dependent upon the men. Lastly, the benefit of education was denied to the most of them. In addition, the women were taught to accept their subjection and even to welcome it to the page of the honors. And it is true that occasionally the women of the character and the personality of the Raja Sultan, Chand Bibi, Ahilya Bai, Holkar arose in India, but they were exception in the general pattern and did not wait to change the picture. Moved by the humanitarian and the egalitarian impulses of the 19th century, the social reformers started a powerful movement in the improve the position of women. While some reformers appealed to the ideal of individuality, equality, and others declared that true Hinduism or the Islam or the Zoroastrianism did not sanction to the inferior status of the women, and that the true religious assigned them to high social position. The numerous individual reforming society and the religious organization work hard to spread the education among the women, encourage the widow remarriage, improve the living condition of the widow, prevent the marriage of the young children, bring the women out of the pardha, to enforce the monogamy, to enable the middle class women to take up the procession and public employment. After the 1880, when the Dufferin Hospital, the Lady Dufferin, the wife of the Viceroy, were started, efforts were made to the modern medicine and the child delivery techniques available to Indian women. The movement for the liberation of the women received a great stimulus from the rise of the militant national movement in the 20th century. The women play an active and important role in the struggle of the freedom. They participated in the large number in the agitation against the partition, the Bengals, and the house rule movement. After the 1890, they marched in the political process, and the picket shop sale foreign cloth and the liquor stores propagated the khadi went to the jails. The non-cooperation faced lathi, tear gas, bullet during the public demonstration and participated actively in the revolutionary terrorist movement and voted in the election to the legislature, even supported the candidate themselves. Sarojini Naidu, famous poetess, became the president of Indian National Congress. Several women became the minister of the parliamentary secretariat in the popular ministry of 1937. Hundreds of them become the members. Municipality and other organ of the local government. When the trade union and the Kisan movement arose in 1920, the women often found their forefront. More than any other factor, participated in national movement, contributed in the awakening of Indian women and their emancipation. For how could those who had brave British jail and the bullets to be declared inferior, and how could they any longer be confined to home and satisfied with the life of the dolls and slave girl? They are bound to assert their right as a human being. Another important development was the birth of the women movement in the country. Up to the 1920s, the enlightened men had worked for the upliftment of women. Now the aware and the self-confident women undertook the task. They started many organizations and institutions for the purpose of the most outstanding of which was the All India Women Conference founded in 1920. Women's struggle for the equality took a big step forward with the coming independence. Article 14 and 15 of Indian Constitution 1950 granted the complete equality of men and women. The Hindu Succession Act 1956 made it daughter as equal to co-heir of son. And the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 permitted the dissolution of marriage on the specific ground. Monogamy was also made uh, mandatory for the men as well as the women. But the evil custom of the dowry still continued even though demanding of dowry had been banned. The constitution given the women equal right to work, to get the employment in the state agency. Directive principle of the constitution laid down the principle of equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Of course, many visible and individual obstacles still remain in the putting of the principle of the equality of the sex into the practice. A proper social climate had still to be created, but the social reform movement in the freedom struggle, the women movement, and the constitution of the free India had been made a big contribution in this direction. Struggle against the caste. The caste system was another major target to attack for the social reform. Hindus were at this time divided into the numerous castes. The caste into which the man was born determined the large area of his life. He determined whom he would marry, with whom he would be died. It largely determined his profession as also his social loyalties. Moreover, the caste was successfully graded into hierarchy of status. At the bottom of the ladder come to be the untouchables, or the scheduled caste as they come to be called later, who frame about the 20% of Indian population. Untouchables suffer from the numerous severe disability restriction which of them was vary from place to place. Their touches was considered empowered and was the sources of pollution. In some part of the country, particularly in the south, they are very sad to watch to avoid it. So that they had to move away if the Brahmins were seen to the hard coming and untouchable traces to places of residence or by successful government. He could not draw the water from the basin tank by the fire. He could also away from the well tank, especially to reserve water untouchable. There no such a well or tank existed. He had to drink dirty water from the ponds or the irrigation. He could not enter the Hindu temple or study the Shastra. Often his children could not attend the school in which the children of the caste to Hindu study. Public services such as the police army were closed to untouchable were forced to take the manual or other such a job which are considered unclean, for example, scavenging, shoemaking, removing dead body, skinning dead animal, and tanning hide skin, usually denying the ownership of land. Many of them not even detonate at will fill the land. The caste was the evil of another aspect. Not only was it humiliating and inhuman, based on the anti-democratic principle of equality, and it was also the cause of the social disintegration. It splintered the people into the numbers. In the modern time, it became the major obstacle in the growth of the United National feelings and the spread of democracy. It may also be noted that the caste consensus, particularly with regard to the marriage privilege among the Muslim, Christian, Sikh, who practice the untouchability in the less virulent. British rule released many forces which gradually undermined the caste system. Introduction of modern industry, railway, buses, growing urbanization made it difficult to prevent the mass conflict about for some of the different castes, especially in the cities. The modern commerce and industry opened a new field of economic activity to all. For example, the Brahmin and upper caste merchant could hardly miss the opportunity of trading in skin or the food, or not would be he agree to deny himself an opportunity of becoming a doctor or so. Free sale of land aspect the caste balance in many villages. The close connection between the caste and the vocation could hardly contribute to modern industrial society in which the profit motive was increasingly beginning to dominate. In the matter of the administration, the British introduced the quality before law, took away a judicial function of the caste panchayat and gradually opened the door of administrative service in all the castes. Moreover, the new educational system was wholly secular and their purpose basically opposed caste distinction and the caste as a modern democratic and the this idea spread among the Indian. They began to build their voice against the caste system. The Brahmo Samaj and the Pratna Samaj, Arya Samaj, and the Ramakrishna Mission, Theosophist, the Social Conference, nearly all the great reform of the 19th century attacked, even though many of them defended the system of the feudal. They were the critical of the caste system. In particular, they condemned the inhuman practice of untouchability. They also realized that the national unity of national progress in the political, social, and economic field and could not be achieved so long as the millions were deprived of their rights to life and dignity and all. Growth of the national movement played a significant role in the beginning of the caste system. National movement was opposed to all the institutions which tended to divide the Indian people. The common participation in the public legislation, grant, public meetings, satyagraha, struggle with became caste consensus. In any cases, those who were fighting for the freedom from the foreign, the name of liberty equality could be hardly supported the caste system, which was totally opposed these principles. The stuff from the beginning of the Indian National Congress. In fact, the entire national movement opposed the caste problem and fought for the equal civics and the equal freedom for the development of the individual without the distinction of the caste system. Upsclive Gandhi abolition of untouchability at the forefront of the public activity. In 1932, he founded the All India Harijan Sangh for this purpose. His campaign for the roots and the branches removal of untouchability was based on the grounds of humanism's regions. He argued that there was no sanction of untouchability in Hindu Shastra, but if any Shastra approved the untouchability, it should be ignored for it, and it would be then going to the against the human dignity. Truth, he said, could not be confined with the cover of the book. Since the middle of the 19th century, numerous individual and organizations worked to spread the education among the untouchables. The untouchables or the depressed classes or scheduled castes, as they come to call later. To open the door of the school temple to them, to enable them to use the public well stands, to remove the other social liabilities, disabilities and distinction from which they are suffering. As education and the awakening spread, lower caste themselves began to start. They become conscious of their basic human right and began to rise the defense of this right. They gradually built up the powerful movement against the traditional oppression by the higher caste. In the Maharashtra, the second half of the 19th century, Jyotiba Phule born in the lower caste family, and led a lifelong movement against the Brahminical religious authority as a part of his struggle against the upper caste domination. He regarded the modern education of most important weapons of the rebellion of the lower caste. He was the first to open to several schools for the girls of the lower caste. Dr. B. R. Ambedkar, who belonged to one of the scheduled caste, devoted his entire life to fighting in the caste struggle. He organized All India Scheduled Caste Federation for the purpose, and several other scheduled caste leaders founded the All India Depressed Class Association. In Kerala, Sri Narayan Guru organized a life struggle against the caste system. He coined a famous slogan, "One religion, one caste, and one God for mankind." In the South India, the non-Brahmins organized during the 1920 and self-respect movement to fight the disability which Brahmins had imposed upon them. Numerous satyagraha movements were organized all over the India jointly by the upper and depressed caste against the ban on the later entry into the temples and other such restrictions. Struggle against the untouchability could not, however, be fully successful under the alien. The foreign government was afraid of the arousing the hostility of orthodox section of the society. Only the government of the free India could be undertaken the radical reform in the society. More of the problem of the social upliftment was closely related to problem of political economic upliftment. For example, economic progress was the essential for changing the social status of the depressed caste, and so also with the spread of education, political right. This was the fully recognized by the Indian leaders, Dr. B. R. Ambedkar. Nobody can remove your grievance as well as you can and you cannot remove these unless you get the political power into your hand. We must have the government in which the main power will not be afraid to amend the social and economic code of life, which dictate the justice and expenditure urgently call for the rule. For this role, the British government will never be able to play, and it is only the government which is the people for the people, by the people. Another word, the Swaraj government will make the possible. Constitution 1950 was proposed, provided a legal framework for the final abolition of the untouchability. It was declared that the untouchability is abolished, and it practices in any form of forbidden endorsement of any disability arising out of untouchability. Shall be offences are punishable according to law. The Constitution further forbade any restriction on the use of the meals, time, bathing hours, access to shop, restaurant, hotel, cinema. Furthermore, one of the directive provisions that it has laid down for the guidance of the government. The state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by basically protecting the effectively as its social order in this strict social, economic, and political shall uniform all the institutions of the The struggle against the evil of the caste system, however, there still remain the urgent task before the Indian people, especially in the rural. So I have finished the chapter number 11, which is the religions and social reform after the 1858. Now the chapter number nationalist movement between the 1905 to 1918. So I will take the break of 5 minutes, and then I'll be trying to continue the national movement after the 1905 to 1980, and what happened after the 1905 to 1980. Before the 12th chapter, there was the religious and social reform in 1858. Upliftment of the women and ban of the sati, ban of the child marriage. So this is the social reform. There are many people like Jyotiba Phule, and there are different people have played an important role for the upliftment of the women's and the depressed class like scheduled caste. So All India Harjan Sangh also had been proposed by the Mahatma Gandhi in 1932, so that it can be remove the untouchability, which is based on the ground feminism and the region. So this is the nationalist movement after the 1905 and 1905 to 1918. Bandana, how are you? Good morning. Thank you so much for the way you support me. I have to take the 5 minute break, and after that I will try to finish chapter number 12, Nationalist Movement 1905 to 1980. So let's have to take the break for 5 minutes. So after the break, let's get started. Chapter number 12, I will try to finish it. National Movement 1905 to 18. So let's get started. Gradually over the years and then the militant nationalism, also known as the extremism, had been growing the country. It had found the expression in the movement against the partition of Bengal in 1905. The Indian national movement, even its early day, had increasingly made a large number of the people conscious of the evil of the foreign domination and the need for the fostering patriotism. It had the important and necessary political training to educated Indian, and it had in fact the changes the temper of the people and created a new life of the country. At the same time, the failure of the British government to accept any important demand of the nationalist produced disillusionment among the politically conscientious people with the principle and the method of dominant moderate leadership. Instead of conciliating the moderate nationalist, the British rule denigrated and looked down upon them. Consequently, there was a strong demand for more rigorous political action method than those of meeting, petition, memorials, speeches in the legislative council. Recognition of the true nature of the British rule. The politics of the moderate nationalists were founded on the belief of British rule could be reformed within, but the spread of the knowledge regarding the political economic function and gradually undermined this belief. The political education of the moderate were the state responsible for this. To a large extent, the nationalist writers and the agitators blamed the British rule for the poverty of the people. Politically conscientious Indians were convicted that the purpose of the British rule was exploited Indian economically, that is, enrich the England at the cost of India. They realized that India could make a little progress in the economic field unless the British imperialist was replaced by the government controlled and run by the British people. In particular, the nationalists come to see the Indian industry and could not flourish except under the British rule. And this could protect the promote them. The evil economic consequences of the foreign rule were the symbolized in the eyes of the people by the disastrous famine which ravaged India from the 1896 to 1900 to took toll of over the 19 lakh of the land. Political event of the year 1892-1905 were disappointed. The nationalists and think of more radical politics. Indian Council Act 1892 described the chapter 10 was the complete disappointment. On the other hand, the existing political rights of the peoples were attacked. In 1898, the law was passed for making an offensive to excite the feeling of this affection toward the foreign government. 1899, the number of Indian members in the Calcutta Corporation was reduced. In 1904, the Indian Official Secret Act was passed restricting the freedom of press. Natu Gada was deported in 1897 without being tried. Even the charge against them were not made public. In the same year, the Lokmanya Tilak and other newspaper editor were sentenced to long-term imprisonment for the eroding the people against the foreign government. Thus, the people found that instead of giving them a wider political right, the rulers were taking away even their few existing rights. The anti-Congress attitude of Lord Curzon convinced the people more and more that, and it was unless they expected any political and economic advances, as long as the British rule in India. Even the moderate leaders complained that bureaucracy was growing frankly selfish and openly hostile to the national aspiration. Even the socially and culturally, the British who were no longer progressive, primarily the technical education was not making any progress. At the same time, the officers were becoming the suspicious of the higher education and were even trying to discourage the spread in the country. The Indian University Act 1905 was seen by the nationalists an attempt to bring the Indian University under the tighter official control to check the growth of higher education. Thus, the increasing number of Indians were getting convicted that the self-government was essential for the sake of economic, political, and cultural progress of the country. That the political incitement meant the stunning and the growth of Indian people. The growth of self-respect and the self-confidence. By the end of the 19th century, the Indian nationalists had grown by the self-respect and self-confidence. They had acquired the faith in their capacity to grow themselves in the future development of their country. A leader like the Tilak, Aurobindo Ghosh, and the Bipin Chandra Pal preaches the message of self-government and asked the nationalists to rely on the character and the capacity of Indian people. They taught the people that the remedies to their sad condition lay in their own hand, and that they should be therefore become the fearless and strong. Swami Vivekananda, and though not a political leader, again and again drove home this message and declared, if there is a sin, he said that if there is a sin in the world is weakness, they avoid all the weakness. Weakness is the sin, weakness is the death. Here is the death of truth. Anything that makes you the weak physically, intellectually, spiritually, reject as a position, and there is no road I fit it cannot be true. He also urged the people to give up living on the glory of the past and manfully build up future. When O Lord, he wrote, shall our land to be the free from the eternal dwelling upon the past. The belief in the self-effort also created to an urge for the extending the national movement. No longer should be the nationalist cause rely on the few upper classes educated Indian. Instead, the political consensus of their masses was to be eroded. Thus, the example from Vivekananda, the only hope of India from the masses and upper classes of the physically and the morality. There were the nationalisms that only the masses could make the immense sacrifices needed to win the freedom. Over the growth of the education and unemployment. By the close of the 19th century, the number of educated Indians had increased perceptibly. A large number of them worked in the administration on the extremely low salary, while many others increasingly faced the unemployment. The economic flight made them look critically at the nature of criticism. Many of them were attacked by the radical nationalist movement. Even more important was the ideological aspect of the spread of education. The large number of educated Indian and the larger was the area influenced by the Western idea of democracy, nationalism, and radicalism. The educated Indian became the best propagators and the followers of the militant nationalism, both because they were the low rate of unemployment, because they are educated in the modern thought in politics, the European and Buddhist. International influence. Several events brought abroad during this period tended to encourage and the growth of militant nationalism in India. The rise of modern Japan after the 1868 showed that the backward Asian country could develop itself without the Western country. In the matter of the few decades, the Japanese leaders made their country the first-rate industrial and military power, introduced the universal primary education and involved the efficient modern administration. The defeat of the Italian army by the Ethiopian in 1896 and the Russia by the Japan in 1905 exploited the myth of European supremacy. Everywhere in Asia, people heard with enthusiasm the news of victory of a small Asian country over one of the biggest military War of the newspaper of the Karachi Chronicles in 18 June 1905 expressed the popular feeling. What won the Asiatics had done other can do. If the Japan can drop the Russia, the India can drop the England with equal English. Let us drive the British into the sea to take our places side by side with the Japan among the great powers of the world. Revolutionary movement in the Ireland, Russia, Egypt, Turkey, China, and the Boer War in the South Africa convinced that the Indians that united people willing to make sacrifices and could challenge even the most powerful despotic government. What was the needed more than anything else was the spirit of patriotism and self-sacrifice. National movement in the existence of militant nationalism and nationalist school of thought. From almost the beginning of the national movement in a school of militant nationalism has existed in the country. This school was represented by the leader like uh, Rajnath Bose, Raj Narayan Bose, Ashwani Kumar Dutt in the Bengal, and the Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar in the Maharashtra. The most outstanding representative of this school was the Bal Gangadhar Tilak, later popularly known as the Lokmanya Tilak. He was born in 1856. From the day of the graduation from Bamber University, he developed his entire life in the service of his country. He helped to found during the 1818 at a new English school, which later became the Ferguson College, and the newspaper of the Maratha in English, Kesari in Marathi. Maratha in English, Kesari in Marathi. From 1889, he edited the Kesari and preached nationalism in his column and taught the people to become the Congress and self-reliant and selfless fighter to the cause of the Indian independence. In 1893, he started using the traditional religious Ganpati festival to propagate the nationalist idea through the songs, speeches. 1895, he started the Shivaji festival to stimulate the nationalism among the young Maharashtrian by the holding of example of Shivaji for the emulation. During the 1896 to 97, he influenced the no tax campaign in the Maharashtra. He asked two famine-stricken peasants of the Maharashtra to withhold the payment of the land revenue for their crop had failed. He set up the real example of the boldness and the sacrifices when the authority arrested him in 1897 on the charge of spreading hatred and the disaffection against the government. He refused to apologize to the government and was thus sentenced to 18 months rigorous imprisonment, and thus he became the living symbol of the new national spirit of self-sacrifice. At the dawn of the 20th century, the school of the militant nationalists found a favor political climatics and the adherents came forward to lead the second stages of the national movement. The most outstanding leader of the militant nationalism, apart from the Lokmanya Tilak, were the Bipin Chandra Pal, Aurobindo Ghosh, and the Lala Rajput Rai. The extensive political aspect of the program of the militant nationalists were followed. They believed that the Indians themselves must work out their own salvation and make the effort to right their degraded position. They declared the great sacrifices and the suffering were needed for this task. Their speech writing, political works were full of the boldness and self-control. They considered the no personal sacrifices to the great of the goods of their country. They demanded that the India should progress under the benevolent guidance and the control of the English. They deeply hated the foreign rule and they declared the clear-cut manners of Swaraj or independence for the goal of the national movement. They had a deep faith in the strength extent of the masses, and they plan to achieve the Swaraj to the mass action. They therefore presses for the political war among the masses, for the direct political action by the masses. Trained leadership. 1905, the India passes a large number of the leaders. So 1905, by the 1905, India possessed a large number of the leaders who had acquired during the previous period valuable experience in guiding political agitation and the leading the political story. Without a trained and political war, it would have been difficult to take the national movement to the higher political stage. Partition of Bengal. The condition of the emergence of militant nationalism had thus developed when the 1905 the partition of Bengal was announced and the Indian national movement entered the second stage. 20th July 1905, Lord Curzon issued an order for dividing the provinces of Bengal into two parts. Eastern Bengal and Assam with the population of 31 million, and the rest of Bengal with the population of 54 million, of whom the 18 million are the Bengali and 36 million of the Bihari and India. It was said that the existing provinces of Bengal was too big to be the efficiently administration by the single province's government. However, the official also worked out how the plan for had also the political aims in their view. They hoped to stem the rising tide of nationalism in the Bengal, considered to at the time to be the neighbors center of the Indian nationalism. Right. Home Security of the Government of India wrote in an official note on 6th of December 1920. Bengal united the powers. Bengal divided will pull the several different way. That is what the Congress leader feel. The apprehensions are perfectly correct, and they form one of the great merits of the scheme. One of our main objectives to split and thereby weaken the solid body of the opponent of the Indian National Congress and the Nationalists of the Bengal formally opposed the partition. Partitioned the Bengal? The Lord Curzon in 1905. Okay. Then within the Bengal, different section of the population, Jamidar, merchant, lawyer, student, city, poor, and even women, rose up the spontaneous opposition in the partition of Congress. The nationalists saw the act of partition as a challenge to the Indian national, and not merely to the administration. They saw that it was a deliberated attempt to divide the Bengali territory and the religious ground. For in the eastern part of the Muslim would be the big majority, and the western part of India. Thus, to disrupt the weakened nationalism in Bengal, it would also be the big blow of the growth of Bengali language and culture. They also pointed out that administrative efficiency could have been better served by the separating the Hindi-speaking Bihar and the Oriya-speaking Odisha from the Bengali-speaking part of the province. Moreover, the official step has been taken to utter the disregard of the public opinion. The vehemence of the Bengals protect against the partition of the explained by the fact that it has been known to the sentiment of every sensitive and courageous people. Anti-partition movement that is going on. Anti-partition movement was work of the entire national leadership of Bengal and not of any one section of the movement. It's a most prominent leader at the initial stage, where the moderate leader like the Surendra Banerjee, Krishna Kumar Mitra, militant and the revolutionary nationalists took over the large stage. In fact, the both moderate and militant nationalists cooperated with one another during the course of the movement, Anti-partition movement was initiated on 7th of August 1905 on the day of massive demonstration against the partition wall. Partition was organized in the town hall in Calcutta. From the meeting delegates, this dispatch is to spread the movement to the rest of the province. Partition took after the 16th of October 1905. The leader of the protest movement declared to be day of national mourning throughout the Bengal. It was observed as a day of fasting. There was the Hartal in Calcutta. People walked the barefooted and bathed in the Ganga in the early morning hours. Rabindranath Tagore composed the national song Amar Sona Har Bangal for the occasion, and this was sung by the huge crowded parading the street. This song was adopted as the national anthem by the Bangladesh in 1971 after the liberation. The streets of Calcutta were full of the cries of the Bande Mataram, which overnight became the national song of the Bengal, and which was soon become the theme of the song of national Bengal. The ceremony of the Raksha Bandhan was utilized in the few ways. Hindu and Muslim tied up Rakhi on the another wrist as a symbol of unbreakable unity of the Bengalis and the two halves of the Bengal. In afternoon, there was a great demonstration when the veteran leader Anand Mohan Bose laid the foundation of AwdheshYadav to mark the indestructible unity of Bengal. He addressed the crowd of over the 50,000. Swadeshi and the RAINFALL. The Bengal leader felt that the mere demonstration, public meeting, and the resolution were not likely to have a much effect on the Bengal. More positive action that would reveal the intensity of the popular feeling and exhibiting them at their best were needed. The answer was the Swadeshi and boycott. Mass meetings were held all over the Bengal, where the Swadeshi are the use of the Indian goods and the boycott of the British food were the proclaimed and the pledge. In the many places the public burning of the foreign clothes was organized. Shops selling foreign clothes are picked. The Swadeshi movement was the immense success according to the surrender. Swadeshi during the day of potency colored the entire texture of the social domestic life. Marriage parents that include the foreign goods, the likes which could be the manufactured at home and were returned. The prices would be often declined the festival ceremony where the foreign article offered the oblation to the god, and the guest would be the request to participate in the festival. Foreign salt and foreign sugar. An important aspect of the Swadeshi movement was the emphasis to place on the self-reliance. The Atma Shakti, self-reliance meant assertion of the national dignity on self-confidence in the economic field. It meant the fostering the indigenous industry and other interpretations. Many textile mills, soap, and the match factory, handlooms, weaving concern. The National Bank and the insurance company were open. Acharya P.C. Rai organized a famous Bengal chemical Swadeshi store. Even the great poet Rabindranath Tagore helped to open the Swadeshi store. The Swadeshi movement had several consequences in the realms of the culture. There was the flowering of nationalist poverty, posage, and journalism. The patriotic song written at the time by the poets like Rabindranath Tagore, Rajnikant Singh, Syed Abdul Ahmad, and the Mukunda Das are sung in the Bengal. To this day, another self-reliant constructive activity undertaken at the time was the nationalist education. The national education institution was the literally technical or the physical education was imparted at the open by the nationalists and who regarded the existing system of education and denationalism. In any case, educate on the 15th of August 1905, the National Council of Education was set up. The National College Arvindo Ghosh was the principal started in Calcutta. The role of student women Muslim in the masses. The prominent part of the Swadeshi agitation was played as play by the students of the Bengal. They practiced the propagate the Swadeshi and took the land of organizing the picketing of shop selling foreign clothes. The government made every attempt to suppress the student. Order was issued to the penalize those school and the college whose students took an active part in the Swadeshi agitation, and their granting aid and other privileges were to be drawn, and they were to be disaffiliated. The students were not be permitted to compete for the scholarship and were to be barred from all the service under the government. Disciplinary action was taken against the student found guilty of participating in the nationalist agitation. Many Many of them were fined, expelled from the school and college, arrested, sometimes beaten by the police with the lathi. The student, however, refused to be the crowded. Remarkable aspect of the Swadeshi agitation was the active participation of women in the movement. Traditionally, the home center movements of the urban middle classes joined the position and the picketing. From then, they were taken to active part in the nationalist movement. Many prominent Muslims joined to Swadeshi movement, including the Abdul Rashan, the famous barrister Liaquat Hussain, the popular agitator uh, Gujnavi, the businessman. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad joined one of the revolutionary terrorist group, and many other middle and the upper class Muslims, however, remained the neutral, led by the Nawab of Dhaka, who was given the loan of 14 lakh by the government of India. Even they supported the partition on the plea that the East Bengals would have the Muslim majority. And this communal attitude, the Nawab of Dhaka and others were encouraged by the official too. And in a speech of Dhaka, the Lord Curzon declared that one of the reasons of the partition was the invest in the Muhammad in the Eastern Bengal with the unity which they have not enjoyed since the day of the old Musalman Viceroy and the king. All India aspect of the movement, the cry of Swadeshi Swaraj was soon taken up to the other provinces of India. Movement to support the Bengal's unity by boycott of the foreign goods were organized in Bombay, Madras and northern India. The leading role in the spreading of Swadeshi movement to the rest of the country was played by the Tilak. Tilak was quickly saw that with the inauguration of the movement in Bengal, a new chapter in the history of the Indian nationalism had opened. Here were the challenges and an opportunity to lead a popular struggle against the British Raj and to unite the entire country in the one bond of the common sympathy. Leadership of the anti-partition movement soon passes to militant nationalists like the Tilak, Bipin Chandrapas, Aurobindo Ghosh, and this was due to the many factors. What was the first factor? The first factor was the early movement of protest led by the moderate failed to yield the result. Even the Liberal Secretary of History John Morley, from whom much was expected by the moderate nationalists, and declared that partition to be the settled act, which would not be changed. The second, the government of the two Bengal, particularly the East Bengals, made an active effort to divide the Hindu and Muslim. The seed of Hindu and Muslim disunity in the Bengal politics were perhaps sown at this time. This embittered the nationalists, but the most of all it was the repressive policy of government which led to people to militant and the revolutionary politics. The government of East Bengal in particular tried to crush the nationalist movement official attempt at preventing the student participating in the Swadeshi agitation have already been mentioned above. The singing of Vande Mataram in the public street in the East Bengal was the ban. The public meeting were the restricted and sometimes the forbidden. The law controlling the press were the enacted. Swadeshi workers were the prosecuted and the imprisonment for the long period. Many of the students were given the award corporal punishment. From 1906 to 1909, more than the 550 political cases come up before the Bengal court. Prosecution against the large number of the nationalist newspapers were the launched, and the freedom of the press were completely suppressed. The military police was the station in many towns where it clashes with the people. One of the most notorious examples of the repression was the police assault on the peaceful delegates of the Bengali provinces conferences at the Brisbane in April 1906. Many of the young volunteers were severely beaten up, and the conference itself was forcefully dispersed in December 1908. The nine Bengal leaders, including the Venerable Krishna Kumar Mitra and Aswani Kumar Dutt, were deported earlier in 1907. Lala Rajpat Rai and Ajit Singh had been deported following riot in the canal colonies of the Punjab. In 1908, the great Tilak again arrested and given the severe sentences of 6 years. The imprisonment and 6-year imprisonment, the Chittambaram Pillai in the Madras and the Hariswattam Rao and other Andhra were the put behind the bars. As the militant nationalists come to be the fore, they gave a call for the passive resistance in addition to Swadeshi and Bypass. They asked the people to refuse to cooperate with the government and bypass the government services. The court government, school, college, and municipality, legislative council. That the Arvindo was put to make the administration under the present condition impossible. The militant nationalists tried to transform the Swadeshi and anti-partition agitation into the mass movement, and they gave the slogan of independence from the foreign. Aurobindo Ghosh openly declared the political freedom is the life birth of the nation. That the question of the partition of Bengal became the secondary one, and the question of India freedom became the central question of Indian politics. The militant nationalists also gave a call for the self-sacrifice without which no great aim could be achieved. It should be remembered, however, that the militant nationalists also failed to giving the positive lead to the people. They were not able to give the effective leadership or to create the effective organization to guide their movement. They arose the people, but did not know how the harness and utilize the newly released energies of the people, or to find a new form of the political state. Passive resistance and the non-cooperation remain mere ideas. They also fail to reach the real masses of the country and the peasant. Their movement remained confined to the urban lower and the middle classes of Jamidar. They had come to political dead and by the beginning of 1908, consequently, the government succeeded to the large extent in the supporting them. There, the member could not survive through arrest of the main leader. Tilak and the retirement from the active politics of the Bipin Chandra Pal and the But upsurge of the nationalist sentiment could not die. People had to be aroused from their slumber of centuries. They had learned to take the bold and fearless attitude in the politics. They had acquired the self-confidence and the self-reliance uh, and learned to participate in the new form of the mass mobilization and the political action. And they now waited for the new movement to arise. Moreover, they were able to learn the valuable lesson from their experience. Uh, Gandhiji wrote later that after the partition, the people saw that the partition must be backed up by the court and that they must be capable of suffering. The anti-partition legislation in fact marked the great revolutionary leap forward for the Indian nationalists and later the national movement to draw the heavily on its legacy. Kushagra Tiwari. Hello Kushagra, how are you? I hope you people are doing great. Government repression and the frustration caused by the failure of the Indian leadership to provide a positive lead to the peoples. Ultimately, the resulted in revolutionary terrorism. The youth of the Bengal found all the avenue of peacefully protest and the political action law out of the desperation by the feedback upon the individual held action and the cult of bond. They no longer believed that the passive resistance could be achieved nationalist aim. British must therefore be physically expelled at the Uganda. Uganda rose in the 22 April 1906 after the Brescian Conference. The remedies lie with the people themselves. 30 crore of the peoples inhabiting India must arise there. 60 crore of hand to stop the course of the operation. The force must be stopped by the force, but the revolutionaries, young men, did not try to generate the mass revolution. Instead, they decided to copy the method of Irish terrorism and the Russian nihilist, that is the assassinate unpopular officer. A beginning had been made at a direction in 1897. The Chapkar brothers assassinated two unpopular British officials at the Pune. In 1904, the V.D. Savarkar had organized the Abhinav a secret society of revolutionary. After the 1905, the several newspapers began to educate the revolutionary terrorism. Sandhya and the Yugantar in Bengal, Kal in Maharashtra were the most prominent among them. In December 1907, an attempt was made on the life of the Governor of Bengal, and in April 1908, the Khudiram Bose and Praful Chowki threw the bomb at the carriage which they believed was occupied by the King's Court and unpopular judge at the Muzaffarnagar. Praful Chaki shot himself dead while the Khudiram Bose was and hanged, tired and hanged. The era of revolutionary terrorism has begun. Many secret societies of terrorism root come into the existence. The most famous of these were the Anushilhan Samiti, which which Dhaka section alone had 500 branches. And soon the revolutionary terrorist active society become the active in the rest of the country as well. They become so bold as to throw a bomb of the Viceroy Lord Harding while he was riding on the elephant in the state procession at the Delhi. The Viceroy was the wounded. Revolutionaries also established the center of activity abroad. In London, the lead was taken by the Shyamaji Krishna Varma, V.D. Savarkar, Har Dayal, while the Europe, Madam Kama and Ajit Singh were the prominent leaders, and these were the revolutionaries leaders. Terrorism too gradually petered out. In fact, the terrorism had a political weapon was bound to fail. It could not mobilize the masses. In fact, it had no base among the people. But the terrorists did make the valuable contribution to the growth of nationalism in India. The historian has put it, they gave us back by the pride of our men. Because of their heroism, the terrorism became immensely popular among their patriotism. Even though the most of the popular consensus peoples did not agree with their political approach. What was the condition of Indian National Congress? The agitation against the partition of Bengal made deep impact on the Indian National Congress. All the section of the National Congress united to opposing the partition. At its session 1905, the Gokhale and the President of Congress uh, loudly condemned the partition as well as the reactionary regime of the country. The National Congress also supported the Swadeshi and boycott movement of Bengal. There was much public debates and disagreement between the moderate and the military nationalists. The latter wanted to extend the Swadeshi boycott movement from the Bengal to the rest of the country and to extend the boycott to every form of associated with the colonial government. The moderate wanted to confine the boycott movement to the Bengal and even there to limit the boycott for foreign. There was the tussle between the two groups of the presidency of the National Congress for that year. In uh, in the end of Dadabhai Naoroji, respected by all the nationalists as a great patriot, was chosen as the compromise. Dadabhai electrified the nationalists then by openly declaring his presidential address that the goal of Indian national movement was self-government or the Swaraj like that UK are the colony. But the differences divided into two wings of nationalist movement could not be kept in check for the long. Many of the moderate nationalists did not keep a peace with the event. They were not able to see their outlook and the method which had served as the real purpose in the past and were no longer adequate. They had failed to advance to the new stages of national movement. The militant nationalists, on the other hand, were not willing to help them. The split between the two come at the Surat session of the National Congress in the December 1907. The moderate leader having captured the machinery of Congress, excluding the militant and element from it. But in the long run, the split did not prove the useful either by the party or the moderate leader lost the touch with the younger generation of the nationalists. The British government play a game of divide and divide and rule. While the suppressing the militant nationalists, it tried to win over the moderate nationalist opinion so that the militant nationalists could be isolated and suppressed. To placate moderate nationalists, it amended the constitution and the consensus through the Indian Council Act 1909, which is known as the Morley Minto Reform of 1909. In 1911, the government also announced the annulment of the partition of Bengal. The Western and Eastern Bengal were to be reunited, while the new provinces consisting of Bihar and Orissa were to be created. At the same time, the seat of the central government was shifted from Calcutta to Delhi. Parliamentary reform increased the number of elected members in the Imperial Legislative Council and the Provincial Council. But the most of the elected members were elected directly by the Provincial Council. And in the case of the Imperial Council and by the Municipal Committee, the district approved in the case of Provincial Council. Some of the elected seats were the reserved for the landlords and the British capitalists in India. For instance, set of 68 members of the Imperial Legislative Council. 36 were the official and 5 from nominated from non-official. Of the 27 elected members, 6 were the representative. 6 were represented to the big landlords and 2 were to the British capitalists. Moreover, the reform, the council still enjoys no real power, having merely advisory role. The reform is no way to change the undemocratic and forgotten character of the British rule or the fact of power and economic exploitation of the country. They were in fact not designed or demonstrated the Indian administration. Morley openly declared at the time, if it could be said that this chapter of reform had directly or necessarily to be establishment of the parliamentary system in India, and I for one would have nothing at all to do with it. His successor of the Secretary of State, Lord Crews, and further clarified the position in 1912. There was a certain section of India which looked forward to a major of self-government approaching that which has been granted to dominion. I see no feature of the Indian has been done. The real purpose of the reform of the 1909 was to confuse the moderate journalists and to divide the nationalist rank and to check the growth of unity among the Indians. The reform also introduced a system of separate electoral under the all the Muslim, where the group in the separate constitution, from which the Muslim alone could be elected. This was done in the name of the protecting the Muslim minority, but in the reality, this was the part of the policy of dividing Hindu and Muslim, and thus maintaining the British supremacy in India. The system of separate electorate was based on the notion that the political and economic interests of the Hindu and Muslim were separated. This notion was unscientific because the religious cannot be basis of the political and economic interests of the political grouping. What is the even more important? The system proved extremely harmful in the practice, and it cracked the process or the progress of India unification, which has been continuous historical process. It became the potent factor in the growth of communalism, both the Muslim and Hindu in the country. Instead, after removing the educational and economic backwardness of the middle class Muslim and thus integrating them into the mainstream of Indian nationalism, the system of separate electorate tended to the perpetuate the isolation from the developing nationalist movement. It encouraged the separatist tendency. It prevented the people from concentrating the economic and political problems which were common to all the Indian Hindu and Muslim. The moderate nationalists did not fully support the parliamentary reform. They soon realized that the reform had not really granted the much, but they decided to cooperate with the government in working out the reform. This cooperation with the government and their opposition to the program of the militant nationalists proved very costly to them. They gradually lost the respect and the support of the public and were reduced to the small political branch. Growth of the communalism. Along with the rise of the nationalism, the communalism who made its appearance around the end of 19th century and posed the biggest threat to the unity of India. The people lead the nationalist movement before the discussion emerges and the growth of the communalism. It is perhaps necessary to define. The communalism is basically ideology. Communal dreams are the only one consequence of the spread of ideology. The communalism is the belief that because of the group of the people follow the particular religions, they have a result of common secular, that is the social, political and economic interest. It is believed that the India religious group like the Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christians and different and distinct community, that all the followers of the religions share not only the commonality of the religious interest but also the common secular interest. That there is and can be no such things as an Indian national, but only the Hindu nations or the Muslim nations and so on. That the Indian can therefore the only one layer of confederation of religious community. Inheritance of the communalism is the second notion, that the society, culture, economic, political interests of the followers of the region are the dissimilar and divergent from the interest of the followers of the another region. The third stage of the communalism is to reach when the interests of the follower of the different different religions of the different religious community are seen to be the mutually incompatible, antagonistic, hostile. Thus, at these stages, the communalists asserted the Hindu and Muslim cannot have a common secular interest, that the secular interests are bound to this approach. And it is not true the communalism was the remnant of the survival for the medical period, though the religions was an important part of the people's life and they had sometimes quarrel over the religion. And there was hardly any communalism ideology and the communal policy before the 1870. Communalism is a modern phenomenon. It had its root in the modern colonialism, socio-economics and political structure. So, so let's get a 5 minutes rest, and after the 5 minutes rest, once more other will be continued. quite often people used to old familiar to identify the class localities. To identify this happened the gravel of the name in order to disturb the identity of the nation. Unfortunately, in India, this project remained complete for the decade of the continent. India has been for the 150 years of the more nation in the making, in particular the legal consensus for the transformation to the communal consensus. In some part of the country, among the some section of the people, the question of why is upon in particular moral political consensus for the late and the popular and the Muslim. The nationalism is spread among the Hindus and the Parsis of the lower middle class. It failed to grow equally rapid among the Muslims of the same class. As we have seen earlier, the Indian Muslim had fought over the soldier and soldier during the revolt of 1857. In fact, after the suppression of the revolt, the British officials have been taking a particularly vindictive attitude toward the Muslim and hanging 27,000 Muslims in January alone. From now, the Muslims were in the generals look upon the suspicious. But this attitude changes. In 1870, the rise of the nationalist movement in the British statements grew apprehensive about the safety and stability of their empire in India. To check the growth of unity national feelings in the country, they decided to follow the more actually policy of the dividing to divide the peoples along with the religious line. Yes, I will try to encourage the communal and the separate tendency in the Indian politics. For this purpose, they decided to come out with the campaigns of the Muslims and then win over their side. The Muslim Jamidars, landlords, and newly educated. They also fostered the other diverse division of the Indian society. They are the promoted the provincialism by the taking the Bengali domination. They try to utilize the caste structure to turn the non-Brahmins. The Brahmins had to be the lower caste against the higher caste. Upper classes in Bihar, where the Hindu and Muslim had always lived in this space. They actively encouraged the movement to replace the Urdu as the port language by the Hindi. Other words, they try to use them the legitimate demand of the different section of Indian society to create a division among the Indian people. The colonial government treated the Hindu, Muslim, and the Sikh separate community. It really accepted the communal leader as the authentic representative of all their core religions. It permitted the propagation of virulent communal ideas and the communal hatred through the presses, pamphlets, posters, literatures, and other public platforms. And this was the sharp contrast with the frequent suppression of the nationalist newspaper, writers, etc. In the rise of the separatist tendency along with the communal rise, Sayyid Ahmad Khan played an important role. Though the great educationalist and the social reformer Sayyid Ahmad Khan became the towards end of the age life to conservative in the politics. Just a second. He laid the foundation of the Muslim communalism when in 1818 he gave up his earlier view and declared that the political interest of the Hindu and Muslim were not the same but they're different, even the divergent can also. He also preached the complete obedience to the British rule. When the Indian National Congress was founded in 1885, he decided to oppose it and tried to organize along with the Raja Shiva Prasad of Varanasi a movement of loyalty to the British rule. He also began to preach that since the Hindu form a larger part of Indian population, they also dominated the Muslim in case of the awakenings or withdrawal of the British rule. He urged the Muslim to not listening to Badruddin Taibji appeal to them to join the National Congress. These views were, of course, the unscientific and without any basis in the reality. Even though the Hindu and Muslim follow the different religions, their economic, political interests were different from that region. Hindu were divided from the fellow Hindu and Muslim from follow the Muslim by the language, culture, caste, class, social status, food, dresses, habit, social practice, and so on. Even the socially and culturally, Hindu and Muslim masses had developed the common way of life. A Bengali Muslim and the Bengali Hindu had more in common than the Bengali Muslim and the Punjabi Muslim had more. Hindu and Muslim were being equally and jointly oppressed and exploited by the British imperialism. Even the Sayyid Ahmad Khan has said in 1884, did you not inhabit in the same land? Are you not born and buried on the same soil? Do you not treated as the same ground to live upon the same soil? Remember that the word Hindu and the Muhammad were not meant for the religious distinction. Otherwise, all the person, whether the Hindu or the Muhammad, can even with Christians who resided in this country are all in this particular respect belonging to one or the same nation. When all these different sects can be described as one nation, they must uh, each and all the unite for the goods of the country which common. The question then rises: how could the communal and the separatist trend of the thinking grow among the Muslims? This was some of the extent due to the relative backwardness of the Muslim in education and in trade and industry. Muslim upper classes consist of mostly of Jamidar and aristocracies. Because of the upper class of the Muslim during the first 17 years of 19th century were very anti-British and the conservative, hostile to the modern education. The number of educated Muslims in the country remained very small. Consequently, the modern Western thoughts with emphasis on science, democracy, and nationalism did not spread among the Muslim intellectuals who remained traditionals and backward. Later, as the result of the effort of the Sayyid Ahmad Khan, Abdul Latif, Badruddin Tayyibji, and others where modern education spread among the Muslims. But the proportion of the educated was far lower among the Muslims than among the Hindu, Parsi, Christians. And similarly, the Muslim had also taken the little part of the growth of trade and industry. The small number of educated person and the main of the trade industry along with the Muslim made it possible for the rich and big landlords to maintain their influence over the Muslim masses. As we have seen that earlier, the landlords and jamidars, whether the Hindu or the Muslim, supported to the British rule out of the self-interest. But the amount of the Hindu, the modern intellectual, and the rising commercial and industrialist class that pushes out the landlord from the leadership. Unfortunately, the opposite remain the cases with the Muslim. The educational backwardness of the Muslim had another harmful consequences. Since the modern education was essential for the entry into the government services or the profession, the Muslim had also lagged behind the non-Muslim in the respect. Moreover, the government had consequently discriminated against the Muslims after the 1858, holding them a large responsibility for the revolt of 1857. When the modern education did spread about the Muslim, the educated Muslim found a few opportunities in the business or the profession. He inevitably looked for the government employment, and in case the India being the backwards colony, there were very few opportunity of employment for its people. In these circumstances, it was easy for the British official and the loyalists. Muslim leader incited the educated Muslim against the educated Hindu Sayyid Ahmad Khan and others raised the demand for the special treatment of the Muslim in the matter of the government services. They declared that if the educated Muslims remained loyal to the British and later would reward them to government jobs and other special favor. Some of the loyalist Hindu and the Parsi to try to argue this manner, but they remain in the small minority. The result was that while in the country in the whole, independents and nationalist lawyers, journalists, students, merchants, and industrialists were becoming the political leader among the Muslim loyalists. The landlords and retired government servants still influence the political opinion. Bombay was only the provinces where the Muslim had taken the commerce with the education quite early, and there was the National Congress included in the ranks, such as the brilliant Muslim Badruddin Tayyabji, R.M. Sayani, and Bhimji, and a young barrister Muhammad Ali Jinnah. We can sum up the respect of the uh, aspect of the problem with the quotation from the Jawaharlal Nehru, the discovery of India, and there has been differences of generation. What the Jawaharlal Nehru has said that in discovery of India, there has been differences of generation are more in the development of the Hindu and the Muslim middle classes, and that the differences continue to show itself in the many directions, political, economic, and other. And it is this lag which produces the psychology of the fear among the Muslims. A student of the history, we should also know that the manner in which the Indian history was taught to the school and college in the history also contributed the growth and community feeling among the educated Hindu Muslims.